Welcome to the program. My name is Marty Shenkman, and I'm joined by a colleague and maybe soon to be friend, Sonia. I'll let her introduce herself in a minute. What we're going to do is a sort of informal discussion of planning for special needs children. Um, Critical topic, uh, affects so many people, and so often we see considerations and issues that don't get addressed, that some simple changes in planning and drafting can do just amazing things to help people and with special needs children and the children who may be adult in many cases themselves. Sonia, I'm going to let you introduce yourself, but um, I'm just going to say that you're a practicing estate planning attorney. You're a mom to a child on the spectrum, the autism spectrum, and you got a big heart, which everyone will know by the time this program's over. So I just thought it would be really helpful and informative to just kind of have Sonia talk from the heart, and I'll pester her with some questions and address topics and issues and considerations that practitioners should really discuss with and help clients with special needs children when they're doing their planning. Sonia, why don't you first introduce yourself? Tell everybody where you're from and what you do.
Thank you, Marty. Hi, everybody. I'm Sonia Muñoz Gallagher. I am the owner of Family Wealth Law, and I am an estate planning and probate attorney that specializes in special needs families. And I am a special needs family myself. I'm in South Florida, and I have two children. I have an 8-year-old who is my heart, and I've got a 14-year-old who I tell is my lungs. She's my air, she's my oxygen, and she's on the spectrum. And she's what is now referred, it used to be called Asperger. Now it's referred to as high functioning autism. And it's just a special ability, is what it is. And it's got its challenges. So I work really closely with a lot of special needs families. So I'm super happy to be here and talk with whoever's listening. And hopefully I can, give you some gold nuggets that you can help other people with today.
So Sonia, one of the things that we were talking about um, is the use of a special needs trust, and I've seen a wide range of just to be forthright, I don't focus on special needs planning, always bring in outside experts because it is a real specialty. But um, I I've seen situations where people are struggling on one end of the spectrum to find enough funds to leave in a special needs trust to help that child, and also to do something for their other children. And on the opposite end of the spectrum, I see where um, people actually put a cap or a limit on how much goes to a special needs trust because at some level of wealth, whether, and I've seen numbers from 2 to 5 million, 2, 3, 5 million, they feel that at some level it's not going to really be able to be applied to help that child anymore, given whatever the status of the child is. Let's talk about that from a couple of different angles because they're all important to address because there's so much variability. I guess one of the first questions is, um, I've seen documents for clients with high functioning children who could be adults with special needs provisions where the child's not currently or anticipated to ever receive government aid. Why would they do that? And what does that mean? And why is that there? Because it only seems to restrict what could otherwise be done to help a child.
Mm. That's a really good thing to talk about, Marty. So, what I can say, because I know a lot of attorneys, and some attorneys recommend
Be nice.
exactly. Yeah. Some attorneys recommend special needs trusts because I think that they're trying to help the client, but they may not know that that's not really necessary. So the way that I work with clients is I try to meet them where they are at the moment and then protect them, preemptive. You have to preemptively think about things. But if your child has a disability and is not receiving benefits at the moment, then I don't think that you need a special needs trust, because what are you protecting? They're not really, the point of the special needs trust is to protect the qualification of that child. But if they haven't qualified and you don't know whether they're even going to qualify, or they're in a long waiting list, like for the Medi waiver in Florida, which we're talking about 11 plus years, then why would I don't find it, I'm not comfortable with charging a client, a few $1,000s for a special needs trust, when I can simply just include a supplemental needs trust inside the revocable trust of the parent. And then that comes out way more economic for the parent, but it's also protecting that child. And then within that same trust, we're also addressing the needs of the siblings that are going to be, most likely taking care of that disabled child. So it's a more comprehensive strategy, in my opinion, or maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. You tell me, Marty, if you
So
disagree,
no, no,
but
what you're suggesting is a contingent special needs trust that's triggered if the child ever ends up on government aid.
pretty
Sonia,
much that's
do you think
exactly
it
how it
do
works.
do you
Yeah,
think it's possible that some of the attorneys that are doing this, and I wouldn't think this would be for a specialist because you wouldn't specialize in special needs planning if you weren't comfortable talking about it. But
right.
is it possible that some of the general estate planners or general practice attorneys don't feel comfortable, don't know what to ask the parents of a special needs child, and that's why they just, oh, you put a special needs trust in because it's a special child. Talk for a second
Uh-huh.
about, because you understand it both as a parent and as an attorney. What kind of questions should the attorney ask and be comfortable asking? Because you can't help people if you don't ask to understand the status of the child. If somebody walks into your office for an interview and they have a special needs child, what do you need to understand? What do you ask?
Oh, that's great. Okay, that's gold right there. Okay. So many things. So one of the key things that I ask my clients to do is, who's going to be the trustee here? Do you have somebody that you trust and that your child trusts? Because it's not just you. Do they connect with your child? Are they close by in terms of demographic? Because a lot of children don't like change. It depends on the disability. So first, you have to think about who the trustee is going to be. Second, and of course, there's corporate trustees also that actually do special needs trusts. So if you don't have anybody that you can rely on, then you can go that route. I actually have clients that have done that. Um, Another thing is a letter of care. The letter of care gives the trustee the information that they need. And this is a very detailed letter. This goes into the nutrition of that person, whether they have any type of intestinal, condition, because it's so many, disabilities. Um, Everything, like it could be, it's just so detailed. Does the child like to sleep a certain way at a specific time? Does the child have an IEP? Does the child even attend school? It can get very, very comprehensive. And because I am a special needs mom, and I have gone into my daughter's school as an attorney, and as a mom, and I've literally flipped my hat. Like I literally have sat in front of administration and said, okay, mommy is stepping out of the office right now and lawyer Sonia's coming in. So, kind of brace yourselves. like that's literally, I didn't say brace yourself, but my tone said it for me. So those are things that special needs moms understand, because they understand that we're lions. I mean, there's nobody stronger than the mom of a special needs child, because you have to be. You are the advocate for that beautiful human that you have in front of you. So with those parents, I go into depth with them. So the letter of care, are there emotional things that happen? Is it because like on the spectrum, when you are low functioning, you've got different needs versus a high functioning person. What's the age of this child? What is the level of independence that they can have, that they want versus what they can have? Because a lot of times that's an issue too. They want all the freedom in the world because, they're just able enough to see that they're different. But the parent knows, there are things here that I need to protect against. So then those are clauses that we can put in, like we can put in addiction clauses. And these are not necessarily in a special needs trust. This is just in a revocable trust, that
What do you
protect,
mean by an addiction clause?
like the trustee has the ability to check whether the adult child is doing
Using.
drugs again. Using, exactly.
Yes, sometimes we designate a different person for that because that may be a different temperament or relationship than the
Mhm.
trustee itself. And sometimes we'll do that with the trust protector who has other powers. Sometimes it'll be a designated individual, even apart from that. So you need
Mhm.
to give some thought to that too. One of the things that is a consideration is if the child has a positive, and you want the child to have a positive relationship with the trustee, and in the context of a revocable trust, the successor trustee, when mom or the parent is no longer there to help or can't help, um, you don't want to jeopardize that relationship. And demanding submission or trying to get a submission for a drug test, maybe a different person could serve in that role so that you can safeguard the positive relationship with the trustee. And you can
Yes.
authorize the trustee to withhold resource, not to make any direct payments, um, uh, if there's non-compliance. And generally that's very important. But I think most trusts tend to be more discretionary nowadays. But you want the discretion so that if there is an issue, the trustee is not forced by some income distribution payout, leaving aside a Q-tip, for in effect fueling problematic behavior.
That's a good way to say it. And I'm going to give an example to just the layperson. For example, an ABA therapist, and I learned this myself from being a parent of a child that gets ABA therapy. One of the
What's
things
ABA?
ABA is
I don't think you mean the American Bar.
behavior,
You don't mean the American
behavior.
Bar Association.
It's behavior something I can't even think of. It's basically like behavior, executive functioning. So one of the things that I was reminded of that I actually used to do when they were little was, or is, that I need to print it out again, actually, a chore chart. The chore chart lives in the hallway. When they get home from school, they go, or they're supposed to. It hasn't happened this year, but we're starting out the year, so it's okay. They go to the chore chart and they have to go through their chores. It's not mommy saying it. It's not the trustee saying you got to go get checked. I'm sensing a little bit of alcohol in your breath. It's the chore chart. It's the independent person so that the trustee is not the bad guy. In my life, I'm not the bad guy. The chore chart is the bad guy. So, in the same way, that's a very good way to do it for the trust to protect that relationship between the beneficiary and the trustee.
One of the things that reminds me of, and it obviously will require a special beneficiary to be sufficiently high functioning.
Mhm.
Um, and I've talked about this with others on programs on mental health and addiction issues, is creating an agreement with the beneficiary. Here are certain things that you have to do, and here are certain things that I'm willing to do. And sometimes having guardrails. And I'll mention my
Mhm.
colleague Amanda Coplin, who I just spoke on about this with, who's very, very good. And she focuses on mental health and addiction issues. Um, you may find that creating an agreement with the beneficiary can address some of these issues. Sonia, let me flip back to sort of that uh, spectrum of, not, that's not the right word, the sort of the uh, football field of two different goalposts with really high wealth clients that cap what they give a supplemental or special needs trust for a special needs trust for a special child. But on the lower end, one of the challenges I've seen is somebody feels they need to set aside X dollars for that special child, but they have other children they also want to care for. That's really a hard call when resources are limited. And when I say resources are limited, these can still be, by general standards, fairly wealthy families, but the amount of money that they have to expend to get the kind of care they want for their special needs child and to set aside for if they die for the special needs child can be a real constraint on the other children. I know there's no standard answer that works, but can you just speak to that and give some thoughts on what you may counsel clients to think about? Because I think that's an important issue for practitioners to tackle, and it's not an easy one, and there's no you can't look up an answer.
Right. Yeah, this is not something there's a textbook on.
No,
It's
and it's different
hard.
for every family.
Exactly. I was just going to tell you that. It's hard because it's so individual, you know? People think estate planning is documents and you can just like print them all out, but no. Every single family that I work with and that we all work with has different fears, different goals, different dreams for their children, you know? So for special needs families, one of the things that, I ask is, what's the relationship amongst the siblings? Are the siblings willing and able to take care of the special needs child? And then are you um thinking about that when you think about the distribution of assets, because if somebody's taking care of the child, maybe you want to give them a little more. Um, And then we also have to think about, is the child actually receiving benefits or not? Because, if the child's already receiving medical benefits, then at least you don't have to worry about that. Versus if they're not, then you need more money for that individual. So it can be very sad for some families that don't have enough and find themselves having to make tough decisions because it's not equitable distribution. You know what I mean? Like
Mm-mm.
we're all human. If you have three children and one is a lawyer, you know, and another one is a kindergarten teacher, that kindergarten teacher is making peanuts. And even if the lawyer is also making peanuts, that lawyer has a JD and has a license that will hopefully, if AI doesn't come and take that job, can make more money. And then if you have another kid that is an alcoholic, depressive, and gambles too, then oh my goodness, you have three very different worlds that you're dealing with. And that they don't teach you in law school, and that they don't teach you in software. You can't just pop out forms, for a family that has those three children. And then you throw in a special need in there also, then you really have to talk to the individual. So that's a long way of saying that it's not just forms.
I'll give you a couple of thoughts on how we've dealt with it. In some circumstances where there's been enough money that they have a financial advisor, we ask the financial advisor to do some projections and forecasts. Sometimes there's been somebody on the medical side that can give some estimates of what to do for the special needs child and create a care plan. In some cases, because you pointed out what I find to be a very problematic issue in lots of different estates, but also with special needs families, is that okay, we have a child that's got a particular challenge and we want to set more money aside for them. But how do you know that another child or heir may not develop a physical or mental health or other issue down the road, or God forbid, be in a car accident, have a traumatic brain injury? So I'm always concerned of making a large disproportionate set aside for a particular heir and then finding, oh my, now we have a problem we didn't anticipate at that time. So where it's feasible to have a pot or sprinkle trust for some components of it, that's fine. I've seen some parents write letters to, and forgive me, it's probably the wrong word to use, but the well child.
Mhm.
If that's the inappropriate term, just correct me. No, no, no.
The non-disabled,
Yeah.
it's okay.
So uh, the When I hear the word disabled, it always has disturbed me because if you think of someone like Helen Keller, she was
Mm.
blind and deaf and absolutely brilliant, an author, a speaker, one of the first women, certainly the first blind and deaf woman to graduate from college in America, and probably one of the few women at the time when you think of how long ago it was. And to
Mhm.
use the word disabled in the context of somebody that capable, it never made any sense. But let's leave that aside.
So
But
true.
but one of the simple solutions, but it's got real limitations, and I've seen it, and I want to point it out, and it's obvious. So forgive me for saying the obvious, but I think it's important enough to do it. For younger families that have a special needs child, you, often we can have the parents buy life insurance so that there's money for everybody if a God forbid happens. The
Mhm.
dilemma or the problem with that is the type of life insurance that may be affordable could be a 20 or 30-year term policy. That'll get the other children through college or whatever training or programs they want and assure that for that period of time, there's money for both those children and the special needs child. But you got to monitor that planning because if the clients do what many clients do is like, oh, I signed my will, I signed my rev trust, I'm done, I don't want to ever talk to lawyers again. It's a very emotionally difficult process for a lot of people. If they don't come back and they have a 30-year term policy, and in year 27 or 28, it dawns on their financial advisor or their attorney or the family that, oh my, this insurance is running out. Now what? So it's a great stopgap, but that's all it is, and it has to be monitored. I've seen some parents, and I know that I've seen it work, but it always makes me nervous where they'll leave more money to, I'm going to use the phrase again, forgive me, well child, with a letter of instruction relying on their integrity, please help your sibling. They don't want to make it legally binding because then you raise issues of whether the government can attach it. So they just leave it to them and rely on that well child's good wishes. That kind of scares me a little bit too, because what if the well child gets divorced, gets in an accident, et cetera, et
Mhm.
cetera, et cetera.
Mhm.
So these are really difficult issues. And I think we've bandied back and forth a bunch of different ideas that perhaps you can draw from with the client's help and try to come up with a solution that works either temporarily or even for the long term for those families. And I've seen lots of different variations. I've seen where a child was high functioning but had some challenges. I'm going to kind of adapt Sonia's example, where one child is a successful professional and the other child has certain limitations or challenges. Um, I saw where they just left an extra $1 million or some dollar figure to the child, the special child in trust, on top of then just dividing everything else 50-50, something to give a little extra edge or help. But again, it depends on the circumstances. It varies greatly depending on the wealth level. It depends on the nature of the challenges. But please never forget that there's no guarantee that because the family has a special need child today, that somebody else may not have a more significant issue later. Sonia, I know you said you don't deal with it that often, but let me just mention that on the opposite end of the wealth spectrum, I will see families that say, given the child's limitations, and again, it depends very much on what the status of the child's limitations are, that they may cap or set a maximum dollar amount for the special needs trust. And I've seen those range from $2 to $5 million. I don't know that there's any magic number. I've heard similar numbers from other colleagues that, do much more of this type of planning than I do. But for very wealthy clients, you may want to cap it if the extra money's not going to help improve the life of that special needs child. Any other thoughts on that topic?
I would recommend really talking to the clients, taking off the lawyer hat, not talking in legalese, because this population is already stressed because of their daily life. So giving them more compassion and more grace than the normal, because they truly appreciate it. They are taking care of someone that they adore, and that is vulnerable, and they want to do their very best to protect them even after they're not here, which is what we all want to do as parents, but especially for the ones that are more vulnerable. So if there's anything that I can leave the viewers with is to just be a little more patient with them, because they have a lot going on.
So let me go off on a tangent for a second, then we'll come back to our topic. When Sonia and I were chatting before this program, one of the things that we were talking about is the impact of AI on all the allied professions, estate planning attorneys, financial advisors, everybody. There are two areas that I feel, and Sonia talked about the first one immediately, which is the emotional and the heartfelt kind of things that she just said. You're not gonna, I don't think for a while, be able to look at a computer and get the heartfelt, soulful comments that Sonia just gave you. And in all honesty, I just don't see some little animated bot having the heart and soul that Sonia just conveyed. That's something that I think AI is not going to address. Dealing with these, in, I don't want to say impossible, but no answer, complex, difficult, emotional decisions like how you divvy up limited wealth to help all the children when one has special challenges and you don't know what the future holds. Those are things that I don't see how AI is going to help for a while. And the second piece, really not, well, and maybe it is related to this topic. So it's the soulful human aspects of planning. And the second is creativity. And actually, some of the things, Sonia, when I forgive me, I'm a tax geek at heart. When I think of creativity, I just had a very interesting conversation with a colleague this afternoon about a very unique off-brand application of a king price adjustment note. We're not going there. It was fun. And I got very excited. And I think for sure, over the Labor Day weekend, I'm going to be talking about this because people are going to want to hear it at the barbecue.
I'm sure.
But
I'm sure.
it does take creativity, not necessarily just technical expertise to address some of these issues because there's no easy answer. Sonia, let's go into something that every practitioner feels they know, but even though me and everyone else knows all the answers to this, I want you to talk about it because it's absolutely, to me, the most important decision to make with planning for a special needs child and family that has a special needs child. And that's the selection of who can be a trustee. I think it's worth talking about a little more because it's such a profoundly important decision. And it's different. And maybe you could just focus on what's really different. If I'm hiring a trustee, I want somebody with integrity. I'm not so worried how brilliant they are from a tax or investment perspective because they should go out and hire a professional to do it. But
Right.
what questions do you ask? What guidance do you give clients that are coming to you and they have to grapple with that? And let me add one last point because I love using institutional trustees, but obvious problem for institutional trustees. Most of them want a million or more of investable assets. Many of them want 5 or 10 or 20 million of investable assets. I think a few will take as little as 500,000, but there's a minimum fee. And unfortunately, many of the families that have special needs children, they're not going to have $1 million of investable assets or more to have a broad selection of institutional trustees. What do you talk to them about? What do you suggest to them?
Yeah, that's a very real problem that I actually have a few clients that we've had to hold on, like we've had to hold off on the process because they can't find somebody because they don't have much money and they can't find somebody. So in Florida, there's a couple of attorneys that work as trustees for special needs populations. So I've actually connected them with them. Um, but it's a real problem. And I mean, I don't really have an answer to that, In the special needs population, there's still so much that's out of the control. We're constantly, as attorneys that do estate planning, we're all about thinking of every possible scenario that we can come up with. So we're very creative. and then like guarding against it, protecting the client from it. But what I have come to find is that sometimes you can't 100% plan because, like you mentioned, you don't know if now you have a special needs child, but then another one has a traumatic brain injury later on. So I don't really have, I wish I had a better answer for you on that, but I don't.
I know there's some institutional trustees. I don't know what the minimum net worth is, but let's leave that issue aside because it's a tough question and no real answer. But um, if you name as a trustee of a special needs trust one of the institutions that specializes in this, any thoughts or comments on that? Because there are a few that actually seek out this work.
Yes. So one of the big things that I have the client do is help that individual have a contact person from that institution and then write a letter. And these letters are very, very comprehensive. These are multiple, I mean, we're talking 20 plus pages describing their child to them so that it's not just a number, so that it's a human. So there's that human element to this. Um, and that really helps the client to feel more in control, more peace of mind, and it helps the institution because now they have a profile on that individual that they're going to help. So that's one thing. It would be like a letter of care, basically, an information, like a biography of that individual. And some of my clients go from birth, from here all the way through to whenever we're doing it. And that's something helpful. And I've spoken with a couple of other special needs attorneys and they like that idea too. So I actually recommend that when I speak in for organizations that help out these families, and I give them those ideas to do that. Because that's, when you're a special needs family, you feel very powerless a lot of the time, a lot of the time, most of the time. So anything that gives you a sense of power really is very healing for that parent. And I know that that's not my job as the attorney, but that's one of the things that I try to help because I take a holistic approach, to the client and to whoever I'm talking to. So that's
I think, as you said earlier, for parents that are struggling with these really tough issues, that sort of atmosphere and persona is vital. Two comments. One, I did a very lengthy article of letters of instruction. And since we're recording this, I'm going to volunteer you, and you can't say no because it's being recorded. I'm going to send you a draft of that article. It's already been published. And we're going to rewrite that specifically for families with special needs children because it's got to be
ooh,
different.
exciting.
And
Okay,
it's got to be different. But I think that'll be a real help to be able to disseminate to practitioners as well as clients.
that would be
Second,
great.
one of the things that I think is very important, and this applies to any family member, parent, child, other people, whoever the client is, whoever their loved ones are, which can be defined in lots of different ways,
Mhm.
anyone that has any kind of medical issue, it's really important to collect all the medical records, have them in an organized fashion. Um, Nowadays, it may, and I'm emphasizing may be easier than it used to be years ago because most records are electronic, and if you're in one hospital system, all the records tend to be centralized on their computer system. Don't rely on that, and you don't know where the parents, the family may move, the child may move. They may have multiple different caregiving institutions or organizations that are involved with them. Collect all the records, get them organized, have them saved electronically, and make sure key people know where they are. Um, Sonia, one of the things that I've seen happen, and I think it's concerning to me. Sometimes people get so uncomfortable talking about these issues, they don't want to have a conversation with the person they're going to name as trustee. And I think that's in general a really bad mistake. But if there's a special needs child, it's even a worse mistake because there's a lot of responsibility that goes with it. So let me ask you kind of like a hypothetical, if you will. If a client's sitting in your office and they say, okay, Sonia, what do I tell Aunt Jane, who I'm going to name as trustee? What kind of conversation do I want to have with her about our special needs child so that she knows what she's in store for and she can make an informed decision? Because you want that trustee to commit to do it with, knowledge of what they're getting involved in. You don't want to, oh my, and then now they're angry or they're resentful or they just don't want to do it. What would you tell the client to discuss with the prospective trustee?
Okay, so these are hard conversations, and most people don't like hard conversations. So the very first thing I would ask is, what's the relationship of that aunt with the special needs child? Assuming that there is a relationship, then we would build from there. If there's no relationship, then the very first thing I would say is, let's begin that relationship, because that child should be comfortable, with whoever's going to be taking care of them. And then I would ask, it's a good
Doesn't that
question.
suggest, I'm sorry to interrupt, but doesn't that suggest that once the prospective trustee is on board with serving, that maybe it's worth making sure that they've met with the child, and if the child has the ability, have a discussion so that the child knows what's coming too. Would that make sense?
Definitely, because you want to empower your child. I'm all about empowering the child, whether they're special needs or not, you know? Um, you want to make it, if you can make it like it's their idea, even better. That's between you and me. But you want to give them a voice in this also. And you want to ask, maybe they have somebody else that you haven't even thought of, you know? So having an open communication is really good for the relationship between the parent and the child too, for the child, because the child's gonna know what's coming, and for the trustee. Um, I know that a lot of people are not comfortable talking about death. I have people that tell me, "Oh, I didn't want to come to you because I just, I've always thought that if I talk about death or
I'm gonna die.
or planning, I'm gonna die."
If I sign my will, it's all over.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
And I tell them, no.
I sublet to Dr. Phil, so I just bring him in.
Exactly. Like, come on now. I
Yeah.
know we all have, the cultural stuff too. I get it. I'm Hispanic. Oh my goodness. And there's a lot of stuff in Hispanic culture. And then, oh, you're talking to me about it. I'm not even dead yet, and you want my money. Oh my goodness. So I talk about that a lot with my clients. But for the special needs, it's more important to talk for the care of that child, because maybe the trustee definitely wants to do it but has questions, and then you open that up, and then you tell them, don't worry, I'm going to help you while I'm alive. I'm going to help you by giving you the information that you need, and then ask me questions too. So then when you have the dialogue open, like starting out with, okay, do they have a relationship? If they don't, let's do that relationship. Let's build that right away. Let's empower the child. Let's empower the trustee by giving them the information and then having them ask questions. So you're giving a voice. It's like that's the theme I'm seeing as I hear myself talk. You're giving everybody a voice. The child has a voice, the trustee has a voice, and the parent has a voice. And then they all feel heard, and then they all feel good, and then they lose that fear, because there's a lot of fear around what's going to happen when we're no longer here.
It's terrifying,
Super terrifying.
especially when you're so worried about a child that could be vulnerable.
You better believe it.
Sonia, if you got a couple more, I want to just do two more questions
I
unless
have
you
a
have
ton
any
of
other
minutes for
topics.
you, Marty. I got all the
So,
minutes in the
so
world.
one of the questions is, and my belief, but I don't have the firsthand knowledge, is that it does get overlooked. When you have a minor special needs child, as the parent, you have the legal wherewithal to make decisions for that child. But when the child attains the age of majority, say 18 in most states, do people realize that they should get a guardianship? Maybe just talk about that process and why it's important, what clients may understand or misunderstand about that.
That's a great question, and I get it very often. When I spoke last at one of these organizations that are local here, I don't know if I should mention them. Okay, so the majority of the audience has children that are over 18 or were about to turn 18, and they were panicking. Some of them um qualify for guardianship, some of them do not. And those are the scary ones. Like mine doesn't qualify for guardianship, and she's 14. So I'm already thinking ahead. What am I going to do when this child turns 18? So,
When you say don't qualify because of their level of functioning,
right,
right.
but they're not 100%, you know?
So let me break it into two pieces because I wasn't even thinking of that. It's a great point. You should
Mhm.
talk about what do you do for a special child where their level of functioning prevents a guardianship, but also talk about because I do think a lot of people forget to go and address the guardianship where their child can qualify for guardianship once the child turns 18. So maybe just address both of those.
Okay. So there's two categories. There's the ones that qualify, very clear cut for a guardianship, and then there's the ones that don't. And they both have different fears, right? For the parent. The ones that qualify for guardianship are way simpler. That's very black and white. You just get a guardianship, it's very evident, and you can continue protecting them that way. The ones that don't, that's a different ballgame. Those tend to have emotional ups and downs that can be very up and very down. That's a very non-legal, non-legalese way to say it.
You're speaking
They're
about the special child having ups and downs.
right. The special child that has an emotional aspect to it that perhaps is impulsive, perhaps doesn't think things through, perhaps is very naive and vulnerable to influences, to a boyfriend or girlfriend influence or peer pressure, um that may not have the executive functioning to live completely alone without scaffolding. So when they're 18, the supports and services are diminished incredibly. I mean, it's amazing. It's just like night and day when they turn 18. So with those kids, with those families, what I have done is we do something similar to the 18-year-old package, which is, the FERPA, the power of attorney, and the healthcare advanced directives. We do something like that, but for the special needs child. And we tell them, you are the client. You want freedom. And okay, great. We all believe in you, but this is a way to have mommy and papi or mom and dad be able to help you when you need it. I make sure to let them know that their freedom, because that's very important, their dignity, it's all about dignity, that their freedom is not going to be impinged upon. It's only when they need it. When you feel overwhelmed in college, let's say they want the typical American lifestyle. I'm going off to college because they read about it in a book or they saw it in a TV show. Okay. Now they go off to college and they're 3, 4 hours away and they are having autistic meltdowns on the regular, but you don't know because they're having the meltdown in their dorm and their roommate is a new person. So, right off the bat, that's a no. That's really hard on them because that's a big change. And they're not picking up the phone. Well, if you have a FERPA, you can call administration and ask, excuse me, has my child showed up at school? What is the attendance? What is happening? What's the grades? All this. Because when they're 18, the school doesn't give that to you anymore. So
You know,
right there, you've got one tool as a mom, as a satellite mom, because that's me. I'm a satellite. I'm right there. All the parties are here, so I can see all the kids. Um, right there, that's a tool that you've got in your back pocket. And it's all about framing it and the presentation. You present it to the child as a backup, just to be able to help you. It's not that mommy wants to go up in your business and find out if you're going to school or getting good grades or bad grades. It's just something that is there to help you whenever you need it.
Sonia, let me ask you a ridiculous question. Don't the schools have any kind of support system for special needs children to help them?
Okay, that's a good question.
I mean, I don't know, but it seems
No, no, it
implausible that
seems
they
like
wouldn't.
duh,
They
like of
should.
course they should, right? They do. They have it, but it's up to the student to go get it.
Uh,
Because now they're 18, right? Now you're 18, your prefrontal cortex is not even fully formed, but now you're an adult. Mind-boggling. That's the mind-boggling part. You're not even fully formed until you're 24, and that's debatable. Some are a little bit slower. And you're gonna go and be an adult now and move out and move far away and try to do all these things when your little central nervous system can go it can go nuts because the light bulb flickered. Like the most random thunder, what's it called? A firework went off. So, like it could be anything. Yeah, and they're adults. So if you call the school or if you call the doctor, let's say they
right.
get in a car accident and you don't know and you want to know what happened, you don't get access to them. So those are things that that are terrifying for a regular family. Imagine for a special needs family. So those are tools that parents can have that have nothing to do with special needs trusts, that are just, very basic, very cost effective, and very powerful and very helpful to the family. That I don't know if attorneys even think of those things, but as a parent, I think about that for my high schooler. So those are things I tell people when they're worried about their high schooler now turning 18 or even after the fact, that they can have those things available to them.
I don't know what proportion of attorneys that have families with special needs children get into these broader discussions, but it certainly would make sense to have, I'm going to use your words because I love them, a broader, holistic conversation with the client because you don't know where you can help if you don't talk and ask. Let's
Right.
cover one last topic, and this is a problem that I've seen in a lot of special needs planning, and it's actually shocked me how many times I've seen it from some very good quality firms. So just to simplify the hypothetical, mom and dad have an adult special needs child. Law firm prepares a revocable trust for mom and dad. Mom is the trustee of her trust. Dad is the natural successor. And they stop there. You need successors because the one piece that I see, and again, it surprises me that often just falls through the cracks is if an elderly parent is the caregiver
Mhm.
for an adult special needs child, and I'll tell you that one of the case studies, dad fell down a flight of stairs. They had to get somebody in the house to pick him up. And then who was there to not just take care of the special needs child, but to also now take care of dad?
Exactly.
Just comment on that because I see
Or
that as a
dad had a
gap.
stroke.
Anything, anything. But
Mhm.
but but I feel that too often they focus on the challenges of the child, they focus on the death of the parent, but they don't the plan doesn't address the disability of the parent.
The
Just
aging, just
the
aging,
aging, yes. It
because
becomes
maybe they haven't even had a disability, but they're just more limited now.
so
Yeah.
what can you tell clients to think about doing when
Yeah.
they're in their mid 80s and caring for a special needs adult child? What can you tell them to do? And then we'll wrap up.
Typically, I ask them, do you have a sibling that is a little younger, or do you have another child, or do you have a family friend, or do you have supplemental help? What scaffolding can we bring in to help you to keep that child in the house with you, but to help you as the caregiver, which also happens when uh, like my mom and my grandfather. My grandfather is 100 years old, Marty.
Wow.
Lucid, forget it. Slicker than a lot of people. Super, like amazing. And he's 100. Mommy is a teenager, but mommy takes care of my grandpa. And that's something that I've had to face myself because I'm in that sandwich generation, you know? So I go to Miami every weekend, but that's not enough, you know? So I see it. And that's a caregiver taking care of an elder parent. That's very similar to an elder parent or an aging parent taking care of an adult special needs child. It's tolling on you. So, what I would recommend is to give yourself more grace as the parent and be okay with bringing in help. And if you can afford it, wow, bring it in because that is going to give you more years to be with your child. Because there's really a lot of truth to caregiver burnout. So that's what I would say. If
I
you've
think
got a friend, a neighbor, anyone that you trust to come and help, and then for the actual like sir, alternative trustees, definitely, you definitely want that because you should bring someone else aside from yourself and your spouse.
I think one of the reasons it doesn't get addressed, and I'm not going to blame the lawyers that drafted the documents or the planning, I think it's really hard emotionally for, let's say, an aging parent to acknowledge that one day I'm not going to be able to take care of my beloved child.
Yeah.
So let me wrap up, and then I'm going to give it to you for any final words you want. And if you didn't like the program, I'm just telling you, Sonia is a kickboxer. So don't, no complaints. I'm going to turn you over to Sonia.
Right.
This was an impromptu, unscripted uh, program. And the goal was to really, and I thought Sonia, because she's both a practicing attorney that works with special needs families and a special needs mom, had a unique and personal perspective on this. The goal was not to be highly technical and explain new planning techniques that you didn't know. I'm sure that everybody listening to this could sit back and say, yeah, I knew all of that. But even if you did, I hope it was helpful just hearing discussions about a lot of these really hard to answer topics and a lot of the topics that clients struggle with. And hopefully one of the pieces that Sonia added, which I thought she did a wonderful job of, is that sort of human, soulful, motherly perspective, not just the lawyer perspective on how to broach some of these really hard topics. So I hope this will help you deal with your clients that have family members or loved ones that are special needs. And Sonia, I'll let you say anything you want to conclude, and then we'll be done.
Thank you for your kind words, Marty. Truly.
I know you're a kickboxer. I had to say nice things.
Hope this helps the viewers, and there's definitely no legalese here because you guys can write about this, I'm sure. But I hope that my perspective as a special needs mom can help you to deal better with special needs clients. And I can invite the viewers to contact me. I am very welcoming of networking and helping anybody out. My email is Sonia, Sonia, at familywealthlaw.net. And if you need anything about estate planning for special needs children or IEPs or anything like that, I have a guide in English and in Spanish on my website, familywealthlaw.net. And I probably have more that I just haven't published on my website that I am more than happy to share with you. Just shoot me an email.
Thank you, Sonia, and thank you everyone for joining us. And I hope that this will give you some not only ideas, but some human and soulful perspectives on dealing with these tough situations. And I'm going to just repeat to close one comment that Sonia made that I think is beautiful. you have to give yourself some grace. It's tough. It's tough for the lawyers. It's tough for the parents. It's tough for the caregivers if they're not the parents. It's tough for the special child. It's tough for everybody. And sometimes we have to just, a little bit of grace goes a long way. So thank you.